How's it going, everybody? So these are my two Tesla Powerwalls that are coming off while I redo the siding on my house. And instead of putting them back on, I'm going to stack them together on a pad. So here's what that pad looks like. I'm using the Tesla spec sheet that describes how the pad is supposed to be built. So let me show you what that looks like and how mine differs a little bit. Hopefully this helps anybody who's in the same position as me. So here's that website that details out the specs for a concrete pad for Powerwall 2. It doesn't talk about Powerwall 3s. You currently can't stack them, but they say you will be able to. So we're just working with Powerwall 2 specs. So right off the bat, they go into this disclaimer that, look, you can pour a concrete pad, but you need to use a pre-existing wall of your structure, which I am not doing. So it goes on to say, hey, look, that's the way you have to do it. And if you don't, then you're liable for any, risk, and you have to hire an engineer and get it permitted. So that's what I'm doing. This video is more about the pad than it is about my wall, because that could, differ for where you live. The sizes of your concrete pad depend on how many power walls you're going to have, 1, 2, or 3. I recommend just going with the 3 dimensions. Why limit yourself? And it's just 4 inches different. So 16 by 34 versus 20 by 34. Mine is 30 by 36. Why is it bigger than 20? Well, I have to build that wall, that freestanding wall or pedestal it's called. So mine is 30 by 36. I rounded up 34 to 36 just to make it easier when I was calculating the concrete needs. So it goes on to say, okay, when you prep, if you live in a snow load area, you need to prepare a 4-inch thick base of stone. I don't live in a snow load area. You got to have at least 3,000 PSI concrete, which mine is 4,000. It'll tell you on the bag. And then it goes on to tell you about your rebar needs. You need number 4 rebar, which is 1/2 inch thick, at 10 inch on, or less than 10 inches on center, both directions. You need, that rebar needs to be 3 inches above the soil. So underneath it needs to be 3 inches of concrete before the soil, which I use spacer blocks to achieve that. And again, it talks about you're using a pre-existing wall. So here's the diagrams. You can see on a 20-inch pad on the left here, they have 3 pieces of rebar. You can see that chamfered edge on the right. The pad has to be 5.5 inches thick. Don't forget that. So you need to use, 2x6 form. If it's sticking above the soil a couple inches, like I said, you need the chamfered edge there on the right. They have the 3 inches underneath the rebar, and you can see the packed soil underneath. Here's a view facing the pad. They've got 5 pieces of rebar for the 34-inch width. They've got the chamfered edge there on the left. You can see there's a 3-inch space between the edge of the concrete and the first piece of rebar. So that lets you know where your first piece needs to be on all the way around it. And you can see on the right side that it's got a 90-degree angle on the corner, and that's if you're butting up against concrete or asphalt already. So here's what I have constructed so far. You can see I got 30 by 36. My rebar's in, and so I've got about a 3-inch space from the edge of the form to the first piece of rebar. And then it marches across. I've got 5 going from left to right. That's the 36-inch side. And then 4 from the bottom to the top there, up across the 30-inch. I've got my handy 3-inch spacer blocks to make sure I got 3 inches between the soil and the rebar. These are the post holders I'm using. You can see the rebar runs through it. So that worked out nice. You can see that wood on the side of the form there. That's the chamfered edge. It's just a 2x4 I ripped the corners off of. I have never I've never poured a concrete slab, and I've never put in chamfered edges, that's for sure. It's kind of confusing getting the cuts right. Have some practice pieces if this is your first time doing it. I got a little bit of gravel in there, but it's certainly not 4 inches thick. But like I said, I don't have a snow load. The soil is nice and compacted underneath it though. So as far as leveling goes, I got it nice and level left to right. You really want it as level as possible. But front to back, I put in a little bit of a slope so that the water would flow off of the pad and towards away from the house. And that's it so far. Next is to pour the concrete. So we got the concrete going in. I went through about 5.5 bags of this stuff, the Saccrete High Strength. It's pretty common at Home Depot. And here it is setting up before I put a brush finish on it. And that's it. We'll let this dry and rip the forms off. You can see the chamfered edges. They came out all right. Unfortunately, there's some air pockets there in the mix, but it'll have to do. And yeah, just excited to have this done. And there it is, all done. The pedestal wall's up. It's 2x10s stacked 6 high, which is more than enough. They're fastened to 4x6 posts that are secured to the concrete anchors. This thing is solid, and I'm happy with how it came out. I've got 23 inches to the edge of the concrete from the wall, which is more than enough. I just needed 20, so plenty of room there. And we are ready to take these off the house and put new siding up, then move them to their new home on the pedestal. I'm going to make a second video on how to stack these. You need a special kit, which is actually kind of hard to find. And there's not a lot of info on how to do it. So stay tuned for video 2 and hope this helps. Thank you.